In this episode of Occult Unmasked, you will hear the strange story of when David Bowie saw the supernatural firsthand. He witnessed the devil rising from bubbles and smoke in his swimming pool in 1976. His wife at the time, Angie Bowie, also witnessed some of these events. This encounter with the paranormal changed them forever. In this episode of Occult Unmasked, we will be discussing the time David Bowie saw the devil in his pool. Many have dismissed this as simply a drug-induced hallucination, but his ex-wife also witnessed the event, and she said she was not taking drugs. They both moved out of their house they were renting in Los Angeles, and people don't move away based on simple hallucinations. So I believe the event actually took place. And I wrote a song about it. After the song, I will go into greater detail on the events that transpired in the 70s when David Bowie and his ex-wife, and perhaps a friend and a white witch, witnessed the events when David Bowie saw a demonic entity in his swimming pool. And it goes like this. David Bowie saw the devil in his pool, as the bubbles rose. David Bowie believes in the devil more than belief he knows. The holy bands, acrobats and lands, moved from their residence, rise and hell roar in the dance. David Bowie knows what he saw, it cannot be unseen. It was not a bad trip or a dream. Ex-witness wrote a biography, hallucination element, but he owns what he saw. So, now let's go into greater detail on the events that transpired when David Bowie saw the devil in his swimming pool. The following is an edited compilation I put together to describe the events that took place in 1976. David Bowie and his wife, Angie, were renting a luxurious house in Los Angeles that had a swimming pool room, and this house was previously owned by the famous exotic dancer Gypsy Rose Lee. David Bowie was just chilling by the swimming pool when all of a sudden something started spontaneously appearing in the pool. At first, I'm sure he thought it was a hallucination or nothing, or he was seeing things, but he got a good look at it, and he said it was bubbling spontaneously, and the bubbles turned into smoke. Now, this is an illustration, artistic representation of what it may have looked like. Smoke started rising from the bubbles, and that smoke took the form of an entity. That entity, only Bowie knows exactly what it looks like, but Angie claims it looked like a gargoyle, horned-like, demonic-like creature. And if it looked like this, I'm sure it freaked the heck out of Bowie. He immediately took off, left the swimming pool room, and he claims he saw capital H-I-M, the devil himself. If David Bowie saw the devil, I'm sure it haunts him to this very day. David Bowie immediately went to the other wing of the house. I'm sure he thought he was hallucinating or going crazy. So he finally gets to his wife, who's probably on the other side of the house, And he tells her the whole story of what happened. I don't know what happened. I just saw the devil in the swimming pool room. I'm sure she didn't believe him at first. But he's like, please, check on the swimming pool for me. And she's like, okay, I'll check on it. And whatever you say. And, he just wants validation from someone else that he's not crazy. She probably thinks he's had a little bit too many drugs today. But she's a good wife, and even though she thinks there's probably nothing, she decides to go check on it anyway. What Angie Bowie does is she watches the pool for 4 hours straight after seeing nothing there. She looks down, she sees nothing. She watches the pool for 4 hours straight from a distance because Bowie insists that she keep an eye on it. Now, after those 4 hours, she walks back up to the pool and she looks down and she sees for the first time a stain permanently embedded on the bottom of the pool in the shape of a gargoyle horned-like demonic entity. Very freaky. First time she saw it, it wasn't there when she checked out the pool on the first time. She comes back, she tells David Bowie what she saw, that she saw a demonic stain shape of a horned demon on the bottom of the pool. He's like, that's him. And it validates that he's not crazy. It validates that he was not hallucinating. So he knows something paranormal took place. It's something that changes you if you experience something like this. Perhaps Bowie has even referenced this event in some of his songs. If I had to guess, I would say perhaps the song The Next Day from his last album might be referencing this event when he said, "They know God exists, for the devil told them so." Even having seen the devil, you immediately have knowledge that there's more out there. If you see one devil, your vision of what's going on in the universe expands to beyond just that one entity. This is a friend of David Bowie's named Cherry Vanilla. She's a songwriter. David Bowie's wife, Angie Bowie, she wanted a priest to do the exorcism because David Bowie insisted on an exorcism, but he did not trust anybody. I'm sure Bowie thought if he got someone he didn't trust, it would be in the tabloids the next day that he has someone exorcise his house. He doesn't want to be seen as a fool. So he talks to his friend Cherry Vanilla. She knows this white witch, supposed good witch in New York named Wally Elmlark. This is an actual drawing from the 70s of Wally Elmlark, the White Witch of New York. She talked to Bowie on the phone. She was in New York, so she couldn't be in Los Angeles, but she recommended certain occult books for Bowie to purchase so that he can do the banishing ritual, the exorcism himself. He goes to the best occult bookstore in Los Angeles in 1976. He grabs, according to Angie Bowie, a huge stack of occult books, I'm sure exorcism, banishing ritual related books. He and Angie go back to the swimming pool. The stain is still there. And Bowie gets the book recommended by the White Witch, performs the ritual as instructed in the book, and with Angie by his side, they both see bubbling appear as the first time he saw it appear. Spontaneous bubbling that Angie claims had no source and had nothing to do with jets. Just random bubbling appearing from nowhere. Now the bubbling eventually went away, but the stain did not. The stain remained. So some thought it was a successful exorcism, but I don't think Bowie believed it was. Otherwise the stain would have gone away. So Bowie, I'm sure, is drinking at this time and doing drugs. Angie said he was, and I'm sure perhaps for different reasons now, because he wants to block out the reality that he just experienced something extremely paranormal, something that changes you, something that will put you in a state of depression. And I'm sure the doctors, if he talked to any psychiatrists, would have told him he was crazy. But he knew that Angie validated what he saw, that it was true, that he did see what he claims to be the devil. I personally believe it was a demonic entity taking a classic shape of a horned, gargoyle-like demonic creature. Bowie didn't trust the exorcism worked, so he checked himself into hotels, I'm sure, and he had a fear. David Bowie had a fear of elevators at this time, and his character in the movie, as you can see, The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976, also had a fear of elevators, which is interesting. I use this footage because David Bowie's experience supposedly took place the same time this movie came out, 1976. David Bowie was so fearful of the haunted swimming pool room that he never went back, and that he left the house. Him and Angie just completely left. Now, people don't leave a house because of a haunted swimming pool room unless something actually happened, in my opinion. The end. So as you can see, if that video is even remotely accurate, which I believe it is, what David Bowie experienced in 1976 was a very traumatic experience. David Bowie was into hard drugs at the time, and he was also into black magic at the time. Now, some would be totally naive on the subject, I assume, but hard drugs plus black magic is a combination for guaranteed demonic entity visitation, where these demonic entities will attempt to destroy your life, screw with you, mess with you, contact you, possess you, and whatnot. And David Bowie, Angie Bowie, his ex-wife, said these events did take place. Here's a quote from Angie Bowie. She said this: "I still don't know what to think about that night. It runs directly counter to my pragmatism and my everyday faith in the integrity of the normal world, and it confuses me greatly. What troubles me most is that if you were to call that stain the mark of Satan, I don't see how I could argue with you. David, of course, insisted that we move from the house as quickly as possible, and we did that. But I've heard from reliable sources, Michael Lippman for one, the property's real estate agent for another, that subsequent tenants haven't been able to remove that shadow. Even though the pool has been painted over a number of times, the shadow has always come back." Angie may have recanted some of the story in much later interviews, but I believe if she has distanced herself from the story, it's because the story is so out there that she doesn't want to be seen as crazy. I'm sure David Bowie doesn't want to be seen as crazy either. David Bowie is not crazy. David Bowie was into hard drugs, so of course he hallucinated a lot. Angie said he hallucinated 24/7 during this time frame, that even Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones was floored by how much drugs, how much cocaine he was doing. He apparently had a glass table with a big pile of high-grade cocaine 24/7 and was up working in the studio 24/7 and never went to sleep for weeks on end. That's extremely unhealthy for your body. He was sleep deprived, was hallucinating, taking drugs, was hallucinating. But I don't believe sleep deprivation will cause you to be scared of a room and leave that wing of the house. I don't believe hallucinations due to hard drugs is going to cause you to want to pack up your bags and leave a house because you're so scared of a room, of an entity that appeared in a pool in a room. I personally don't believe these things could cause such a strong reaction. People wouldn't leave a place, and Angie admitting because it was haunted, it wouldn't be attached unless people would claim Angie is lying. Now, I personally believe Angie is telling the truth. The few sentences she has in the book which vaguely mentions the story was not created or designed to sell the book. It's pretty clear the book barely mentions it and focuses more on other things, such as Bowie watching the movie Rosemary's Baby and thinking he's a character in Rosemary's Baby, thinking witches want to steal him to force him to create the Antichrist baby. Now, yeah, David Bowie watched movies and had very paranoid, crazy thoughts like that. But David Bowie was also practicing black magic. Angie Bowie said David Bowie wanted to outdo Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, who was really big into Crowley, really big into black magic. And I'm going to do an episode on Jimmy Page in the future. David Bowie thought he could outdo Jimmy Page with black magic and the black arts, occultism. And so David Bowie bought many black magic spell books, performed black magic rituals. Now, I know for a fact David Bowie practiced black magic rituals because David Bowie openly admitted to performing them. So you were involved in actual devil worship? Not devil worship, no. It was pure, straightforward, old-fashioned magic. The Aleister Crowley variety? No, I always thought Crowley was a charlatan, but there was a guy called Edward Waite who was terribly important to me at the time, and another called Dion Fortune who wrote a book called Psychic Self-Defense. You had to run around the room getting bits of string and old crayons and draw funny things on the wall, and I took it all most seriously. Ha ha ha. I drew gateways into different dimensions, and I'm quite sure that, for myself, I really walked into other worlds. I drew things on walls and just walked through them, and saw what was on the other side. One of the rituals David Bowie mentions is drawing gates on his wall with crayons and chalk and ribbons, drawing gateways all over the place, and being pulled through those gateways and communicating with entities in other dimensions. That's an exact definition of a black magic spell that I have read about. And what happens is you draw something on the wall in chalk, and it's not a physical gateway. Drawing it only tells the demonic entity that you're willing to be pulled out of your body into their dimension. It's simply a sign of I'm willing to be pulled out of my body, go into your dimension. It's a ritual that takes place in other means other than walls being drawn on the wall or the floor, such as Vodun, Haitian Vodun. In Haitian Vodun, they draw a vive or a sigil in corn flour on the ground, and they drink rum and they have skulls and candles. All of these things are the equivalent of drawing that. They're just more elaborate. It gives the spirit full license, the negative entity spirit, to pull the people out of their body, go into their body and possess them. Now the gateway is more of just pulling you into their dimension. They show you the dimension. David Bowie said it was very real. It really happened. He actually was pulled into other dimensions, actually went through the gateways. He was very adamant that this actually happened. And I read a story about someone practicing Vodun. Now I'm interested by these stories, but I don't practice any occult rituals, just to let you know. Do not try this at home. Do not try hard drugs. Do not practice black magic. It'll lead only to bad things. When Bowie had asked the journalist George Tremlett whether he had tried to communicate with the dead using a Ouija board, Tremlett said no. "Don't," replied Bowie. "It can mess you up, especially if you're taking drugs." But in this story, the person was pulled out of the body, very similar to an alien abduction, but it was clearly demonic because they were demons. They were zombie-like creatures with their skeletons, and they pulled the guy out of the body, showed him a huge spider, chopped off his head, but he didn't die. He was able to look around with a chopped off head, and it's in a book that I have done a review on, and it reminds me of a Tim Burton movie, how cartoony these skeleton zombie-like creatures treat this guy. And then he wakes up, who knows how many hours later, and he knows that it wasn't simply a dream. It wasn't a lucid dream. It was literally him going to another dimension, being shown crazy things. These entities, they can show themselves as anything. And they decided to show themselves to Bowie as a gargoyle-looking, horned, demonic entity. Angie Bowie saw the stain on the bottom of the pool permanently embedded on the bottom of the pool in the shape of a gargoyle-looking, horned, demon-looking creature. And it's a very generic design. It's a very generic mask that they put on. This show is all about unmasking the occult. And I wish David Bowie would mention this story. He has, according to those who are familiar with the story, he has mentioned it vaguely in interviews in the past, perhaps interviews from the 70s or 80s. I haven't been able to find those interviews, but not every interview is on YouTube. But that's the story. Coming up next, the next episode will be on Jimmy Page, something related to Jimmy Page, an obscure thing concerning Jimmy Page. I thank you for watching. Thanks for watching. This has been John Razimus with Occult Unmasked. Be seeing you.